In this story, I share my encounter with a terrorist. I'm Joanne Green.
I'm Joanne Rosenzweig for KRE Public Affairs.
As a female on the airwaves, I would often receive letters from prisoners. Generally, they were rambling missives that included a fair amount of detail about attempts to win parole and/or mistreatment by the guards. The palpable loneliness was compelling, but I was reluctant to become pen pals with any of them. In 1977, however, I received a call at KRE, the radio station where I worked, from someone claiming to be a representative of Bill Harris. Bill and his wife Emily had been members of the SLA, the notorious Symbionese Liberation Army, a small band of self-styled revolutionaries who, in an attempt to draw attention to the inequitable distribution of wealth, kidnapped Patty Hearst.
There's been a big kidnapping on the West Coast. The victim is Patricia Hearst, the daughter of newspaper executive Randolph Hearst and a granddaughter of the legendary William Randolph Hearst.
On February 4th, 1974, 19-year-old Patty Hearst was kidnapped from her home in Berkeley, California, by members of a radical group that called itself the Symbionese Liberation Army.
The SLA were involved in bank robberies and shootings, and the soap opera of their antics and the chases that ensued had captured the country's attention. Images of a young heiress brandishing a rifle on the front page and on every newscast left America scratching its head, wondering what could possibly happen next. Bill, I was told by the female caller, was allowed by law to contact one journalist, and he had chosen me. Was I interested? Yeah. She instructed me to write him a letter and gave me his address. I sent a short note asking if he'd been listening to KRE. His response referenced the question. It's true that I am familiar with your work. Your station provides my background music, and that may be very therapeutic considering this environment. However, I may have a KRE Jones. Some people take Valium. I listen to you. I took note of his excellent grammar and flair for writing. In case you weren't already aware, his letter went on, my original purpose in wanting to speak with you was in connection to Emily's situation at CIW. Emily Harris, Bill's wife, had gone on a lengthy hunger strike to draw attention to conditions in the women's prison in Frontera. Bill continued. I felt that you seemed to be a woman sensitive to the struggles of other people, and women in particular, and therefore might see the merit in exposing what is happening inside the California women's prison. At the time, and this was several weeks ago, I had felt a significant urgency and desperation, being somewhat impotent to accomplish very much from this vantage point, to seek the assistance of the limited media outlets which attempt semi-objectivity and are not controlled or manipulated by the Hearst empire. Oh, this was good, I thought. After targeting the Hearst media conglomerate by kidnapping Patty Hearst, Bill was referencing their control over the media in a personal letter to me. The thoughts came in rapid succession. Would I do one interview or a series? Would it be a documentary or short installments? This was the radio journalist's equivalent of striking gold. Bill's letter continued. I envisioned a possible spot on your Women Making Waves series or a kaleidoscope segment, and I wasn't necessarily thinking of giving me an interview, which is always termed in the trade an exclusive. I've been trying like hell to fade into the woodwork for 2.5 years now, longer than that considering the time on the run, and that's why both E and I rarely make any public comments on anything. I mostly wanted to interest you in a little investigative journalism specific to Emily and CIW and what can be said about the subject of political prisoners here in North America. Okay, this was not going to be easy. I was going to have to win his trust over time. Maybe after getting to know me a bit, he'd reconsider. I didn't view Bill and Emily Harris and their posse as political prisoners. They'd committed violent crimes. My interest wasn't in digging for a story about conditions in the women's prison. I had neither the time nor the resources in my job. Rather, I wanted an interview with Bill Harris. Step one was to go and meet with him at San Quentin Prison. The first time I tried to visit, I was turned away for wearing jeans. As inmates wore jeans, prison staff and the public had to wear pants made of any other material to differentiate them. The second time, Though Bill knew the date and time I was coming, he was called out for a meeting with a lawyer, and I again found myself heading for the car without having made contact. The third time, we had a conversation. Separated by the thickest piece of glass I had ever seen, we spoke through a device. Bill was shackled to the floor with chains attached to each wrist and ankle. I tried acting like this was just a normal day and that I was accustomed to sitting in the one prison in California that had a gas chamber, talking to a person chained to the ground. Whether he bought my act is an open question. After a few moments of awkwardness, we began to converse in earnest, but our conversation was cut short by the guards. Time's up. Clearly, this was going to take some time. The following week, I was mugged while returning to my apartment in Oakland late one evening. While I wasn't physically hurt, the emotional toll and the time I had to spend dealing with the criminal justice system in the aftermath of the crime put the Bill Harris project onto a back burner. Continued to correspond by mail, however, and I decided to share my story and the dilemma I faced in a letter. I'd been asked by the perpetrator's probation officer whether I wanted to advocate for him being tried as a juvenile or an adult. As I understood it, at age 15, the man boy who jumped me could be tried as an adult, which would likely mean that he'd be sent to prison, or if tried as a juvenile, there was a chance that he might be rehabilitated. Excerpt from a letter I received from Bill Harris, January 26, 1978. I am sure your experiences as victim have been revealing as well as unfortunate and an extreme hassle. There is no hope for the criminal justice system under present conditions. The band-aids offered by our political demagogues are laughable to anyone who has the good sense to see the real magnitude of the problem of criminality and the complex measures that must be taken to change things here, and at the same time ensure we don't create a more intense police state. People like you who pay taxes and are victimized get beat more ways than you may realize. But what it all boils down to really is that we are all getting beat, criminals and victims alike. Better said that the community as a whole, in all its diversity, is being victimized by this insane social arrangement which is conveniently allowed to be self-perpetuating. But there's still hope. Really, there is. Bill Harris's insights were not helpful. Really, no one's were. I wanted Ricky locked up so that he wouldn't come after me again. Yet I didn't want to be that person who shelved her principles when pushed up against a wall. Would I be any safer if Ricky went to prison? If there was a chance that he might be rehabilitated, shouldn't I vote for him being tried as a juvenile? All of this colored my view of Bill Harris, and I questioned whether I even wanted to give him a platform to espouse his views. While like him, I deplored the egregious disparity in opportunity between rich and poor, black and white, and the inequity in the way that justice was meted out. The SLA's actions were horrific and had accomplished nothing. On February 7, 1978, I wrote the following with the heading, Never to Mail Letter to Bill Harris. What can I learn from you, through you, beyond the sagging rhetoric I've heard, ingested, toyed with, and ultimately dismissed for want of an easier life? Perhaps I'm turning my face, merely perpetuating all that leads to crime. Yet where does my responsibility begin and end? If I can be stabler, more content as an individual, I'll have more to give. What good do any of the politicos sitting in Berkeley apartments right now do by eating off of food stamps, perpetuating negativity? This stinks. That's a joke. Do I really want to see all the pain that you see? After an exchange of about 6 letters, I had come to view Bill Harris as a smart, idealistic, uncommonly sensitive person who had been inspired by revolutionary heroes and come under the spell of a charismatic cult-like leader. I was grateful that my sensitivities to those less fortunate didn't run so deep that I wanted to kill those who held power. Perhaps it was a form of mental illness. In the end, it became clear that what Bill Harris was really seeking from me was friendship. He had wanted a relationship, and I had wanted an interview. Neither of us got what we wanted. And I am left with a stack of letters that capture a moment in history. Hi, if you like In This Story, you'd probably enjoy reading or listening to my book. By Accident, a memoir of letting go. It's available on Amazon or wherever you get your books, in paperback, as an ebook, and an audiobook. Visit Joanne-Green, that's Green with an E, joanne-green.com to sign up for my newsletter. Thanks for listening.